So we're back in Logic for a composition session. This time we're going to be using some D16 plugins. Coming down to the instruments here, D16 group, and we're going to load up the multi-output version of Drumazon. So this is an emulation of the classic Roland TR-909 drum machine. It's got a real authentic sound to it, and it has the benefit of being tweakable. You can get in there and play around with all these parameters to shape the sounds how you want, just like we used to do on the classic 909. I'm not going to be using the internal sequencer here. I'm going to be programming stuff in Logic. The other thing to take note of is the fact that we've got these individual outputs here for the individual sounds. So what I need to do is just to make sure I've got enough down here, clicking the plus sign on the mixer, and we're going to make sure that we've got 11 in total if we need. So we've got 10 aux channels and the original instrument channel here. Let's get something down. What I will do is I'll quantize it on the way in by setting this first. And there's the kick drum. It's a little bit loud. Going to bring this down. Be conservative with the levels to start off with. And I'm going to record in there just a little 2-bar sequence. So that's there. And what I want to do now is just record a clap. Let me find it on the keyboard. There we go. You can see here that's output 7. I'm just going to double click on this and call that clap. It's a little bit loud. Let's bring this down. Just going to record this in. Okay, and the other thing that I'll do is get some hats in. There's a classic open hat. Let's record. And you know what I'm going to do also? A little closed hat as well. Let's get that in. So you can hear what's going on. We've got these hats now. Let me just type in here, closed hat, and then open hat. Let's do some customization now. All right, so just quickly just name this as beats. And this region here, just going to name that too. Just going to show you programming, just in case you're curious. One of the things I might do actually is just deal with the velocities. Don't feel that I need to have the variation there. I'm going to bring these all up. That potentially is going to be clipping for me now. So I'll tell you another thing that I'm going to do. I'm just going to group all of these and run these out to their own bus. So bus 1 is going to be my drums bus. So that's a single fader for all of those. So I said I wanted to customize this. Let me just get in there and have a listen, and let's bring the Drumazon up. Let's solo the kick. Here's what we can do, because this is generating the sound. It's not samples. So I can have a play around with these parameters. You hear that? Decay. It's making the kick longer. This is bringing out the pitch envelope. So we've got that very short high to low pitch being increased. And the actual tone of the kick is the pitch control down here. Okay, so like that. Maybe lengthen a bit more. Let's have a listen to the other sounds. Also going to bring that kick down. Now that closed hat, what I want to do there is I want to shorten that. Okay, so we're going to take this over here, the decay. And you'll notice that they're basically on the same choke group. So when the closed hat is firing, it cuts the open hat short, okay? And that's that real authentic old kind of hi-hat programming sound. Now, let me just solo on the clap. Before I was feeling like it was a little bit too spacious, and there is a reverb control on here. You hear that? Just going to shorten that. So it's nice and tight. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look at the EQ on this one. I'm going to roll off some highs. A little bit too bright for me up there. I'm also going to stick on a low cut and take this up maybe about 200 or so. You'll notice there's actually a little bit of a variation in the way the clap sounds. If you had a 909 clap sample, it would just be static, but it feels like it's changing. So it means it's a little bit more organic. Okay, so look. What I want to do now is I want to take that kick and I want to treat it like I used to do. All right, so this is on the hardware desks that I had back in the day. So I used to take the channel that had the kick drum, take the gain control at the top of the channel, rotate it fully clockwise, right? So this created a form of distortion that was coming through the circuitry inside the desk, and it had a real hefty kind of vibe to it. You know, if you listen back in the day to some of the early Armand Van Helden tunes, he was very much using this technique, as were a lot of other producers. And so we're going to simulate that using an effect. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to go into that D16 section. And what I'm going to use is the Devastor. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. And just because you can, I'm going to make this into a bigger interface because it's such a lovely design here. You know, it's got real classic old kind of vibe to it. So take a look what I'm going to do. All right, on this kick drum, I'm just going to use the preamp over here. All right, have a listen to what happens. Okay, I am going to have to deal with the output level over here because it's going to get pretty loud, but I'll show you. So already I've got to bring this down. All right, we don't want to be getting the level clipping on the master over here. Oh man, you hear that? So that's that Armand Van Helden kind of vibe already. Let's have a listen again. That's the sound we used to get from the desk. You know, it's got that real authentic flavor to it. Now, it may be that actually our kick drum's just a touch too long. All right, so we're going to get in there and adjust that here. That sounds great. All right, let me see how this is feeling now with the others, the other elements that we've already laid down. It's really dominating at the moment. It feels like it's a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is just ease back a little bit on that preamp control. So I like that. Okay, I think that's working nicely. I'm going to add just a little bit more of a vibe to this. All right, so look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the drums group and we're going to run it through something else. All right, so we're going to come down, audio units, going to go to D16 again, and this time I'm going to go to decimal. And this is it's like a bit crusher, you know. So it's one of those things that we can use to make it sound like we're using old school hardware. And the most obvious place to go is this knob here. Okay, so that basically takes the sample rate down. So you can see 44.1 kilohertz here, and it's going down. Going to get some different vibes out of this. Let's have a listen. So the whole point of this is to make it sound like it is coming from like an Ensoniq ASR10 or like a EMU SP1200, Akai S900. You know, these guys were 12-bit, had a real interesting texture for them. Right, now that's really subtle. All right, I'm gonna have to A/B this. Let me take it off. Now that's adding a real griminess. All right, have a listen again. So without. So I really like what that's adding here. Once again, this is very simple. I haven't done much here. It's just simply one knob and we've ended up with that real interesting texture. Just out of curiosity, right? I'm just going to add another. So this is on the drums bus, everything. This does include the kick drum, all right? So I'm going to go to the Devastor 2 again. Let's just make that GUI big. This time I'm going to scan through some presets. Now, one thing to bear in mind about this is this is a multi-band distortion unit. So these 3 bands can basically be used to separate kind of separate frequency areas and do something different. Also, the signal routing can be adjusted here. Honestly, I haven't delved into this in a big way just yet. Okay, so I don't understand everything about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through some presets. I'm going to show you some of the textures that you're going to hear from this, all right, coming through. Bear in mind, this could sound really rough, all right, so watch it is. The level should be relatively low down here. Let's have a listen. Now, what I really like about that is it's got this sense of this kind of pumping energy to it. Of course, it sounds a little bit too mashed up, so we could use the dry and wet control over here. So let's have none of the effect, and then I'm going to gradually bring it in. Some great textures there, but I'm going to keep going. Let's take a look at another one. Now that's designed, it seems, for a 303, so that's the acid kind of vibe, which is probably going to sound fantastic on something like that, but I'm going to move to another one. Do you know what? There's some amazing energy coming from this, but you've got to be careful. You know, I'm not able to listen on speakers at the moment. This is all on headphones, so I can't guarantee that the mix sounds good, but you can get a sense of what's going on here with the energy that it's adding. Now, I'd be inclined to go with that. I really like what that's offering. So we've got a lot more energy. You could hear there that the hi-hats were really coming out as a result of that. Let me do the same again here. I'm going to bypass. Let me just do something else. I'm going to add an instrument. So we're going to come down. Let's use one of the Logic stock sounds on the EXS24. Something that I haven't used for a while, but I've got a funny feeling it could sound pretty good on this. So if we go to factory and we go to synthesizers and we go to chords and cloud chords. So this is a selection of chord sounds. I'm going to take the unison off. These are responsive to velocity. So the filter opens and closes according to how hard you're hitting the keys. Okay, let me just get that down, right? And see what happens. Let me just shorten the length of that. Okay, so on this one, just going to do a couple of things. Just going to run a compressor over that first. And that's just to cope with the fact that the filter opening and closing is creating a volume fluctuation, and I want that to be a stronger signal overall. The other thing that I'm going to do is just take a look at what's going on the bottom end there. I'm hearing some bass. Okay, that's sounding good, but you know what? I want to see how one of these D16 plugins sounds, so I'm going to run that decimal on top. Once again, let's make it sound as if it's coming from an old school piece of hardware. Let's see. I really like how that's sounding. Let me give you an A-B here, so without the effect. Okay, and let me do something else. I'm feeling I want to get some of that classic EFM bass stuff on the go here. Let's turn the volume down. Okay, let's go lower. Okay, sounding good, but this FM bass is sounding a little bit clean. I like the idea of running that also through one of these. So we're going to go to D16, going to go to the decimal again. Let me see how that feels by bringing that sample rate down. Let's just go for the fat GUI again. Oh man, listen to that. Sounds wicked. Also just going to try this stereo detune. You know, this has got that real nice, grimy, hefty, you know, this sort of sound would sound great for vinyl. You know, there's plenty of DJs playing this kind of stuff. Just feeling I want to add something else, and let's go here, EXS24. I feel I want to just add some kind of percussive stuff going on. So factory drums percussion. Just having a look down the list, maybe just trying to find, I'm not sure where it is actually, I'm trying to remember, I think it's in world. And if we go here to, there we go, Latin kit in the South American, so I'm looking for some Latin percussion. Just going to turn this down. Oh, that's actually quite a nice shaker. That could come in quite handy. Let me just see. Yeah, I'll record that in. Okay, that's cool, but I'm just going to set up a duplicate track here with something different. Funny enough, it feels like it's kind of distracting from what's going on there. So the Latin kit was really useful for that little shaker there. And, you know, I think that's working. So just really to finish off at the moment, and, you know, this is something that could be turned into a nice idea, that's for sure. I'm going to whack on something else. This is just something that if you are a D16 user, you will be able to get this for free at the moment. There is a promotion and you can log in and you'll get access to Frontier, which is a limiter. So just going to stick this at the end of the chain. And, you know, this is on the stereo out at the moment. And let's just turn the volume down. Just bear in mind, this is going to get pretty loud, potentially your side as well. All right, so mind your ears. Tell you what, why don't I just bring the volume down first, all right? Bring the threshold down. What that's doing is it's providing the limiting at the end of the chain. It's got a nice kind of sonic vibe to it. I could go into the details here, but I really haven't had enough time to be able to kind of comment on that accurately. But, you know, it's a very simple control here. You bring the threshold down. Watch out for the increase in level here. If anybody does know how to stop this going above 0 dB, please let me know, because I'm having to manually adjust this at the moment. There may be a setting that I'm missing. But it'd be great to hear from the D16 guys about that. Potentially it's in here, I'm not sure. No, these are some MIDI controls. Processing, so yeah, because as you saw, I had to reduce the output level to make sure we didn't go above 0 over here. So if anybody does know, please give me a shout. So anyway, so that's a little demonstration. You've seen basically the D16 drummers on, the drum machine. You have seen that with some programming from Logic. And we've got multiple outputs here all coming into the mixer. So they're running through on their own drums bus into a couple of other effects. So we've got over here, let me just get my positioning correct. There we go. So we've got the decimort being used to make it sound like it's an old piece of hardware, like sampling hardware. Then we've got the Devastor to add that raw kind of texture to the hats. And of course, I had over here on that kick drum another instance of Devastor providing that really heavy Armand Van Helden kind of kick drum. All right. So if you have any questions, give me a shout. I'm going to provide some links so you can go and buy these. And, you know, highly recommended. And you can really see and hear the result there. This probably does need a proper mix down, that's for sure. I'll check it out on my speakers tomorrow. And if you guys are into it, you know, maybe I'll develop this into a full idea. And then at some point, do a deconstruction on it.